So I'd like you all to give a good, smarter eggs at the White Horse welcome to our red chair guest for tonight, Gillian Keating. So Gillian, I guess most of the people in the room tonight would know you primarily in your role as the president of Cork Chamber, but I guess I'm just going to start off by asking you a little bit about what your day job is and what it is you do when you're not in that chamber role.
Okay, my day job is the official line as a corporate lawyer, so I am basically involved in any companies who are looking for investment or considering buying into another company or selling their own business. But I must say, unofficially, I related very much to Miriam's picture of the woman flat on the floor. Because most of the time it's crazy for 3 weeks because you're on a transaction, and then there's the, jeepers, I'll never do that again. And then within a few days you're doing it all again. So that's both the official and the unofficial line.
Okay, well, both lines are what we're looking for. So I'm curious, when you were a little girl, let's say 6 or 7 years of age, what did you want to be?
At 6 or 7, I probably wanted to be a nurse.
Okay.
But I moved very quickly from that. So by the time I was 15, I had a very clear idea what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And that's what I'm doing without the chamber piece.
Sure.
So I just, for as long as I can remember, wanted to be a lawyer. Don't know whether that was a combination of, was it Ally McBeal or, sure we can all relate to those kind of glamorous ones who look like, you know, it's all easy and very lucrative and all that.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know, I think seriously it was probably an awareness that I liked listening, I liked talking, and I just had an idea that that would suit me.
Do you watch shows like, let's say, The Good Wife and things like that, or do you avoid all legal dramas or even the television in its entirety?
So The Good Wife didn't sound a bit legal to me, so I gather I don't watch that.
Okay.
Sure, I get sucked into some kind of series from time to time, but legal ones not necessarily, but I'm not adverse to them.
And does any of it bear any resemblance to the world you live in every day?
No. I've yet to see anything on television that bears resemblance to anybody's life that I know, not just my own. So
well, here's a opportunity for filmmakers all over the world to capture the goings on in South Mall. Tell us about your school days, though. Did success come easy to you? Were you a natural student?
I was never a natural student in an academic sense, but success, if that's what I have now, certainly came easy to me because of the school that I went to.
Okay.
And I think that's because more than anything else, the key thing in the school that I went to was all about believing in yourself and having confidence, so that while you don't have to be a straight A student, if you've got the confidence to know that you can get there, you may not be the person who wakes up in the morning and understands the issue just like that, but if you're the kind of person who's confident enough to inquire, astute enough to listen to the answers, and confident in yourself that you will know which pieces go with which, then you can do almost anything. And certainly that was the ethos that I had in the school that I went to, and that's just been the bedrock of everything I've done since.
So it sounds like your parents' choice of school was a significant path-setting moment for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So tell us, from, let's say, those forming school days right up to the work you're doing today, what kind of path did you follow? Was it conventional, or was it, how did that work out for you?
Probably not. You're definitely intent on showing me up on the academic side. So I wanted to do law, as I said, since I was about 15, and at the time when I was doing it, I think it was like 25 points. Most people in the room probably won't even know what that means, but anyway, it was 25 points. And I think I got something like 21. So I had a choice: would I repeat my Leaving Cert, or would I just do something else to kind of build on what I might do later on? So I did an arts degree first. I did economics and French, and then I went straight on afterwards, still committed to doing law, and studied law, so you had to do it as an occasional student for a year because of the way the CAO thing went. And then I didn't get it on an interview, so I was applying then as a mature student, which meant you were over 24. And I didn't get it then on my first interview, and I was just devastated. This was just the end of the world. It was way worse than not getting the points in the Leaving Cert, because then I had a plan. But then when I didn't get this interview, I felt, Jesus, you know, this is plan C now, I have no plan C. But I pestered them to put me on a wait list in case a place came up for a mature student. And sure enough, somebody dropped out, and there was my place. So, yeah. So it was certainly unconventional. Yeah.
You never found out their names? So you sent them a box of roses or something, no?
No, I never dropped them that check.
And as your career has developed, who would you say has had the, let's say, the biggest influence? Which individual would have had the biggest influence on you?
On my career? I would say two people probably. A woman that I worked with in my first job. She was my boss, but she was only a few years older than me, and this was in a large corporate law firm in Dublin. And she was just super tough, but super efficient, and was really committed to what she was doing and delivering a brilliant service for people. So she definitely influenced me in the early years in my law career. But I suppose on the business side of things then, definitely my father would have been a huge influence, yeah.
Tell us a bit about your dad. What kind of stuff did he do, and what business was he in, etc.?
I suppose, you know, he was just, he was a businessman in the truest sense, or kind of in the old-fashioned sense, where it was, you know, very much about knocking on doors, looking for contracts, making contacts, building on those contacts, then, you know, working on the contract, making sure it delivered the job at the end of the day, and employing people in really challenging times. So we've challenging times now, but there were also challenging times, you know, 25, 30 years ago. And, you know, he used to work away an awful lot, and you just saw real grit, real determination, and a real understanding that it's not just about talking the deal, it's about getting the deal and then delivering on the deal. So certainly he influenced me hugely on that side.
Yeah. And do you notice some of his, let's say, characteristics or ethos coming through in how you operate even?
Definitely the hard work piece.
Yeah.
Because I suppose most of same for everybody, like the most of what you get today is from sheer hard work, determination and grit. You know, luck certainly plays a part, opportunity plays a part, but at the end of the day, it won't come together without the hard work.
Yeah. Would you consider yourself as a lucky person in general, or how would you classify it?
Did that trip through law a minute ago sound lucky?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. Okay. So when you're not being a successful lawyer, etc., how do you spend your time?
Is that pre-chamber or post?
Yes, yeah. Excluding chamber.
So excluding the chamber piece, which takes a lot of time now, I, in recent years, I've got a great love for sport and activity, which again, you know, certainly wasn't with me kind of growing up. I used to spend, in the school that I went to, you could play table tennis, which, let's face it, isn't exciting to most people, or you could play hockey.
Yeah.
And I used to spend my Friday afternoons working out how I was going to get out of hockey. So sport definitely didn't come naturally to me, but in the last 5 years, I've, you know, just really enjoyed the time out and cycling and running and just getting my head square. Brilliant. So it's great release, yeah.
Super. Well, it's not a good night for cycling, judging by the rain hopping off the roof.
No, and it hasn't been a good night for a while, which is a bit depressing.
Really, isn't it? Yeah. So, I'd like you to come back to a moment in time where a thought popped into your head that was something along the lines of, you know, Gillian, I could be chamber president. Can you remember when that first crazy idea popped into your mind?
I remember when I was asked if I would consider it, And, you know, like a lot of women, I think it's well sort of publicised now at this stage that our first reaction is, no, I can't. So that was my first reaction. It was kind of a case of surely they could find somebody better than me. But I played around with it a little bit in my head and asked a few people. And I was very conscious that certain people were clearly confident that I could do it. So then it was back to that school thing, I suppose. It just said, you know what, I bet you're as good as anybody else, so go for it, give it a shot.
Fair play to you. And when I suppose you're a year into that role now, right?
Yeah.
And how do you think being in that role has changed how other people see you and interact with you?
That's interesting because some people respond to it or respond to me in that role hugely positively. Like the goodwill from the get-go has been incredible, and that has really, really helped me, especially in the first few months when you're very much grappling with, you know, you're still trying to get through, can I do this, am I doing it right, you know, you're still worried about what people think about you as opposed to sort of relying on your own instinct. So that was hugely positive and very, very helpful. But I still believe that we're still not away from the position where sometimes people think because it's a woman in the role that you're maybe playing with it a little bit. But it's very much a minority. But, you know, there is that reaction as well.
So explain to me what you mean by playing with it. What is that?
That maybe, you know, it's not taken as seriously with a woman in the role. I still think, you know, we're grappling with that a little bit.
Yeah. And when would you get that sense? Is it in certain meetings or just in certain the language that people use and so on?
Yeah, it's just interactions with people. Yeah. We all have that sense where you know somebody isn't quite meeting you eye to eye.
Yeah.
And it's not something that you can always say, oh, it was because she said, because it's not always a he, it's, you know, so it was because she said that or he said that. It's just that sense. Yeah. You can, when it's happening, you can almost touch it.
Yeah.
But as I said, that's very much the minority, but you know, it's still there.
And when the, you know, when let's say a year ago when you were being sworn in, is that the correct term? I'm not sure.
I'm not either.
When the chain is handed over or whatever. You know, there was a lot of buzz at the time that, you know, you were the first female president in almost 200 years of the entity. And what was your kind of reaction to that publicity? How did you find yourself reacting to it?
It's hard really because you know, having a woman in a role like this is important for lots of people. Excuse me, men and women. And you don't want to in any way undermine that, or you don't want to belittle that at all, because it is important. But at the same time, you know, for the person who's stepping into the role, you're doing it not because you're a woman, you're doing it because you think or people think or have faith in the fact that you're the right person for the job. And it's very important that we don't get away from that, because otherwise sometimes having women in positions of leadership can be seen as, you know, a favour to women, which it should not be, and in fairness usually never is. But if you talk up, you know, this first female, you know, first woman, it's almost like, you know, well done from the chamber, we've got a woman in the role. And it's never, it shouldn't be about that. It should be about having the best person to do the job. Yeah.
And why do you think it took 200 years for that to happen? What's going on there?
Well, in fairness, it was only by accident or sort of, I suppose, tragedy, really, that I was the first woman. There was a really, really capable woman, Hilary Walpole, who was a partner in PwC, who was vice president, so she would have, all things being equal, ultimately been the president of the chamber, and that was 10 years ago. But unfortunately, she got very ill. So.
And how has, let's say, the year impacted you? For example, What have you learned about yourself from being in that role and being out and about and doing all these things?
What have I learned about myself? I have learned that I have some good ideas and that I have a different view than people who have gone before me, and that's what makes it exciting from the Chamber's perspective. It may not be the right view, but it's a different view, and I have the sort of, I suppose, courage of my convictions in that view to explore it with people, and that opens doors for the Chamber and for me personally that wouldn't happen otherwise. So I have, I suppose, built on the confidence in my capabilities, definitely. I've also realised, which is something I always kind of struggled with, not to take myself too seriously, because sometimes I get it really, really, really wrong. And you just have to be able to move on from that and not stress about it and rethink it and overanalyze it and just become totally paralysed from the analysis. So I just learned as well to take myself less seriously. And sometimes things go wrong and feck it,
Yeah, absolutely.
Shit happens.
Yeah, indeed. A lot of it happens in these sessions as well, by the way. So give us a sense of the kind of things that you do in that role, because people kind of hear the title and they go, "Ooh, wow, that's amazing," but they may not have a sense of what exactly is expected of you on a daily or weekly basis. What kind of things do you do in that role?
So it's just mind-blowing. In fairness to the Chamber, and this is not just talking up the Chamber, there'll be lots of people here who know, and it's like everything else, until you really become involved with something or you really engage with something, you don't really appreciate what's happening there. So I always take the example of, it's like red wine, the first time you taste red wine, it doesn't taste so great at all. But the more you taste it and the more you get to know about it and different things about it, the more you like it. So, and the more you appreciate it. So definitely the more I engaged with the Chamber, the more I understood what was happening there and the kind of level of commitment and the work that was going on. But really, it wasn't until the last year that I've kind of really seen it firsthand. So there's a mix of focus within the Chamber. So there's a huge, huge piece around the policy piece, and that's all about, what's good for Ireland, what's good for the region that Cork is in, and what's good for Cork, and then what's good for all of the member businesses who are based in Cork. And that's everything from, making sure that we have the right kind of fibre connectivity, to making sure we have a functioning airport, to making sure that we're attractive for IDA companies, to making sure, and all of this making sure stuff takes a huge amount of understanding the opportunities for this region and then understanding the challenges and how we can address them. And so there's an incredible full-time team of people who are employed by the Chamber who do that. But then beyond that, there's a huge amount of volunteers who give off their time because they know it's good for their business and what's good. They know it's good for the region, and what's good for the region is good for their business. So I attend an awful lot of policy meetings, so internally in the Chamber, and then also meeting Secretaries General of various government departments, meeting various government ministers. And that, for somebody like me, is firstly hugely outside of anything I'd ordinarily know anything about. I've never had any kind of political allegiances. I've never really got engaged in politics at any serious level. So that has been an incredible eye-opener. Positively, in some ways, you do see that things do get done and that people do care about what happens here. And then, very frustrating because it's slow when you don't, when you're used to running your own business or working in your own business where, you make a decision and then it's boom, boom, boom until it happens. This is like, there's a method and there's a way around it and there's certain protocol and, everything takes longer than you expect. But while, you could get frustrated with that and throw your hands up in the air after the first meeting and say, look, forget that, because they're never going to do anything and I'm just not interested and I couldn't waste my time. And sometimes that was my initial reaction. But nothing would ever get done then. Yeah. So you have to build up the patience within yourself to continuously deal with them. So that's one element of it. And then there's the whole engaging with members, which is really interesting. So you go to kind of networking events and that, where you get to hear people's stories and understand more about their businesses. And that's really beneficial for me because, I kind of operate inside the office. I rarely see people. It's a huge amount of my work is done on email and transactional documents, reviewing documents, sending them back by email, blah, blah, blah. And, you don't really get a chance to get the story behind the business. So it's really good on the networking side. And then you have the whole event side, which is really, really fun. And that's the thing that a lot of people see. So there was the big annual dinner there a few weeks ago. And, people came up to me afterwards and say things like, oh, you must be so relieved now, you can relax. And like the next day or the next following Monday, I was at a meeting with the IDA in Dublin. So it just doesn't work like that. There's a thing that this wheel is turning all the time.
Yeah. And where in what context in your role do you hear the most laughter in those settings? Where is it the giddiest?
Where are the giddiest ones? There's not a lot of laughing.
We can't show this to the chamber folks.
No, there's not a lot of laughing. Certainly, I suspect you'd have heard an awful lot of laughing at the annual dinner, certainly maybe at 2 o'clock in the morning and thereafter. So there would have been a lot of laughing then. But on a day-to-day basis, no. And that's not to say that everybody's dull. On the contrary, I think they're just focused. I'm
glad you clarified that.
I think they're just focused on their business, at the networking events. And clearly, you don't get secretary generals. I don't think they laugh ever, really.
No, that's not in the job description, I guess. No. But tell us, if instead of me sitting in this chair, there was Gillian of this time last year, and you could give advice to Gillian of 1 year ago, what kind of things would you be saying to her?
I would be saying to her to just trust in your own instincts. And I would say don't take yourself too seriously, which I've learned. And I would tell her to... I would probably tell her what everyone told me, which was absolutely useless advice, by the way, which was to enjoy it. Because, it's like going paragliding for the first time and somebody's saying enjoy it like hell. So, until you get to grips with something, you can't enjoy it. So I'm looking forward to enjoying the next year.
Brilliant.
But definitely, every time somebody, just enjoy it and be yourself. And, what else could I be? And enjoy it definitely wasn't high on the agenda because I was just too focused on making sure I did a good job. So,
fair enough. What kind of things in the world piss you off?
The big one is the naysayers. So, you hear it, we all hear it all the time. It is just so incredibly easy to criticize what other people are doing. But the really challenging piece is actually to come up with some kind of a solution. Or, as Miriam would say, to ask the right questions that lead to the solution. So, I hear all the time, and I'm hugely passionate about Cork and Cork City in particular. So people say all the time, the city is a disgrace and there's hardly anything happening in the mall and, look at all the boarded up shops. And it's very hard not to react negatively to that type of conversation. So really it encourages further negativity instead of encouraging some solutions or some ideas or some level of engagement on, what you can do to improve it. So, the next time somebody says to you there's boarded up shops in the city centre, I'd like you to say to them, well, there are also graduates from UCC who are looking for a place to set up a business. Could we see if we can make that space available to them? Or, the next time somebody says to you, well, the mall is dead, you say, well, where's your business? Where's your business located? And, you know, maybe you should consider moving into the city because that's where all the kind of young, hip people are who want to hang out near the clubs and restaurants and cafes that are in the city. That's
like
after
yourself.
Ballincollig, of course.
Exactly. Yeah. I was just gonna say, yeah.
So
Obviously.
definitely the naysayers really piss me off, yeah.
Yeah. And do you ever snap? Would you ever, being in a conversation with someone, go, for feck's sake, would you ever just, cop yourself on, or something controversial like that? Or would you, or are you able to kind of maintain your composure when you hear a lot of that stuff?
Okay, so I always snapped before, but then, you have to be conscious then that it's a great honour to be president of the chamber, and you're very conscious that you also have, not just your own image, but their image to protect. So I wouldn't snap now, but it doesn't stop me from saying what I think. And I continue to say what I think.
Sure.
But that's why people ask me to do the job, I think.
Okay. Remember superheroes and, all the various galaxy of superheroes like Superman and Batman. Does Batman qualify? Spider-Man, certainly. And they all have superpowers, right, of varying degrees. What superpower would you like to have, do you think, that would add to what you're trying to achieve?
I would like to I'd like to bring Cork City back, to transform it and to bring it back to where it was maybe 50 years ago. You know, when you see those old photographs and there's people 10 deep on the pavements in Cork City looking at something happening on the city, I would really like to have Cork City that populated with people again. And the only way we're going to do that is by getting more people living in the city. The only way we're going to do that is by making the city more attractive in terms of, green spaces. I spoke to Doreen Allen at an event once, and she was saying, we should be planting vegetables in all the green spaces around the city. And, it sounds so crazy, but it would be great, So if you had more green spaces, and we were the kind of only city in Europe to sort of cultivate vegetables and food, in the city. So, but you need to create more green spaces, you need to create more sort of hubs of activity, and we just need to get more people living in the city. And if I could wave a magic wand, I'd have the pavements 10 deep again with people.
Just trying to picture you in a cape, circling around the city, making all that happen.
I look good in a cape. Good in a cape.
It's a PR opportunity, by the way. There's a lot of enterprising people here. I'm sure they will take you up on it. So what keeps you sane? What keeps you on track when all this craziness is going on around you?
My friends, my husband sometimes, and and exercise, definitely.
Sure.
Definitely, that's the key for me.
Yeah.
But my friends too, I have good crack and, good nights out, and, they inspire me all the time. And then I just love being physically active.
Yeah. Does it annoy you when people suggest that you're a role model? Does that freak you out in any way?
It certainly doesn't annoy me. I find it hard to believe, but it also keeps me on track. I suppose it keeps you going. When you said a while ago, would you flip or freak out or whatever? You definitely won't freak out when people are watching. So, I suppose it's helpful, but it's a bit unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah. So your final year, is it sad to say it final, or should I say your second year in your presidential role? What kind of things are in your mind that you'd like to see happen, or that you'd like to effect change somehow?
Okay, so I've already spoken about the city, so that's very important. I also think that in Cork we have an incredible opportunity to become a real entrepreneurial city, because we've got great colleges here. We've got massive amount of really important, really, really good research being carried out here. And we've got some really exciting places that a lot of people don't know about. Like one of my favourites is the the whole Marine Institute in Imerk. I just think that's incredible. I mean, we're living on an island. We have the National Institute with kind of globally recognised facilities 10 miles outside of Cork City. And they have the capabilities to develop a whole host of innovative marine-related businesses out of that institute. So I think we should all be talking about how Cork can be the European capital of entrepreneurship, because we've got all the ingredients. We have, some really good commitments from government at the moment that we could build on. But there's a little bit of work to do to bring all of the infrastructure together, but it's achievable. And I think we need to start talking about it and having the conversations about what we need to do next, about what we could do better. But most importantly, if we're having those conversations, they should start with, I believe, what we have. And we have a huge amount to build on. So I'd really like to see those conversations happening.
Okay, I have 3 simple questions. What was the best book you read in the last year?
I really enjoyed, there's a newspaper that runs, they have these they do lunch with different people, and the whole idea is around this breaking bread. So you have conversations that centre around the food, but it's all about what the individuals do. And really, really different people from completely different backgrounds. And they put all of those articles together in a book. And it was lunch with whoever the various people are. So I really enjoyed that, because you get different insights, like from people like, Michael O'Leary to a fashion designer. There's nothing kind of highbrow about it. It's people from all different walks of life. So I love that, because it's an insight into people's lives and what makes them tick, and what a little bit about their industry. So that was pretty good.
Can you remember, did Michael O'Leary pay for his lunch when
Would you believe in that one? He normally you go to a restaurant, so for that one he insisted that the interviewer come to his place up in Arienta, and he got 2 kind of cardboard sandwiches. She said she couldn't even eat it, and coffee from a coffee dispenser.
Okay.
But he ended up paying for the lunch, which never happens, because it's usually the other way around. They pay for the lunch. So.
Superb. And what did you see the last time you went to the pictures?
I'm not great for going to the cinema, but I am going on Saturday to a really important one. Can I tell you what it is?
Please.
So for anybody here who's interested, the Cork French Film Festival is on at the moment. Those of you who don't know, it started last night and is running for a week. And I'm introducing a film on Saturday in the Gate Cinema, which is called Girl Rising. And it's all about the importance of educating girls and the challenges in some countries around the world for women and young girls to achieve any level of education. So it's a really, really cool film. It's a great initiative. And 11:30 a.m. in the Gate Cinema for anyone who's interested.
Brilliant. Sounds good. And what do you listen to, assuming you have music in your ears, when you're doing your running, walking, cycling, or whatever that is? What kind of beats?
I have no music at all.
Really?
None whatsoever. Wow. So, I love these, on a Sunday night they do this, is it Voice UK or whatever? And I watch that sometimes on a Sunday night, and I love the fact that they usually pick old songs. Like there was one last night, Tainted Love, like I remember that. So I remember songs.
That was just like last year, right? We're not that old, come on.
I think it was the original version.
Oh yeah, I know. That's what I meant.
So, so I am just useless. My friends just laugh at me. I have no rhythm. I have no musical ear. And while I love art and I love architecture, I just have no artistic things in me either. So it's definitely deficient on that level.
Well, I wouldn't call it that, and I certainly wouldn't use those terms in relation to Gillian. Please put your hands together for Gillian Keating.